Hi guys, how's everybody? Welcome to our week 4 meeting. So let me see who is here. Veronica is here, Laura is here, Magali is here. Okay, and then Sandy. I know Sandy, you're somewhere. So if you see this, make sure put your name into the right top corner. Just say hi to everybody. Therefore, that I know that you're here. Okay. So guys, remember the only way for me to count you present for the meeting is for you to say something in the chat box. Otherwise, I don't know you're here. All right. Now this is new for this week because as you know, Google Plus don't work anymore. Hey Trent, how are you? Yeah, makeups. So yeah, guys, this is new for this week. Google Plus doesn't work anymore. So from now on, every single meeting will be on YouTube. Okay. So again, but just like before, I will put the link on Canvas so you guys can access it later. Now, another thing that we need, there's one more change for the future meetings. Many of you email me says that you cannot participate during the meeting because you have other classes or to go to work, but you still want to get the X recorded. So this is what you can do. So once I post the link on Canvas, you can log on to the meeting before get started and then post your questions for the week, and I'll answer them during the live meeting. And then once you post your questions and then you come back to look at the meeting after we finish, I will still give you the extra credit. Okay, that's another way to get your points for the test. All right, so let me see. Does anybody have any questions before we get started for this week? We're going to go over chapter 5 and chapter 6 PowerPoint for this week. Okay, so let me see. Anybody have any questions? All right, if no questions, let's first do chapter 5. All right, let me do my screen sharing. All right, here we go, chapter 5. All right, so chapter 5, we're going to study the elasticity for demand and supply. So elasticity, you know, really what it means, just how elastic the either demand or supply is. Laura. Okay, so Laura, yeah, so chapter 4, that was for last week. And then guys, for last week, I was in meeting all day, so I didn't have time to do the meeting for us. So that's why I didn't have a meeting for last week. But yeah, don't worry, we're not, Veronica, you didn't miss the meeting. It's that we didn't have a meeting last week. Now, if you guys need help on chapter 4 assignment or have any questions, you're more than welcome to send me an email and let me know, and I will answer them either online or emails. Okay. So, but this week, let's talk about chapter 5 because chapter 5 and 6 are due this week by Monday. And then if we finish early, and if you guys do have questions on chapter 3 and 4, you can ask me. Okay, so let's do chapter 5 first. So chapter 5, elasticity. Now, first by definition, so elasticity, it measures the numerical measure of the responsiveness of either QD, which is your quantity demanded, or QS, which is your quantity supplied, to one of its determined change. And this determined change can be anything, can be price, can be income, can be the price of other good. The formula for price elasticity, so this is the first one I'm looking for. The price for elasticity for demand is the percentage change in quantity demanded over the percentage change in price. And then the thing with percentage change, you have to follow a very strict formula for this one, because if you do it any other way, you will get a wrong answer for it. So guys, I will show you how it works on here. Magali. Yeah, Magali, I think everybody else is working. If yours is not working, check your computer. If it looks blurry, guys, it might be your internet connection. Because I have my dual screen here, so on my computer it looks pretty clear. Okay, so if you can get a better connection, and then if that wouldn't help, I guess try to open with the Firefox. that might help a little bit. Okay. All right. So this formula for elasticity for demand is going to be our what am I doing? There we go. So this equals to your percentage change in quantity demanded over the percentage change in price. Now, guys, the little triangle over here is called delta. It just means change. So the percentage change in price, quantity demanded divided by the percentage change in price. So let's look at the first one. Now, this is easy. So we have a problem over here. So the equilibrium or the point we have goes from, let's call this one 0.1 and then 0.2. So go from 0.1 to 0.2, and then your quantity demanded is changed to the left, and then price goes up. So let's suppose our price increased by 10%, and then quantity goes down by 15%. So 15% for quantity, and then 10% for price, and this just be 1.5. So very simple so far. Okay. Now let's look at this problem over here. So this might be a little problem. So if I ask you guys to find out what is the price elasticity for demand between point A and point B, there are two ways to do it. Now the first way to do it, you can use your, so let's find out the percentage change in quantity first. So the percentage change in quantity, so we're going to use these two numbers over here, so 12 and 8. So if you do 12 minus 8 over 8, that will be what? That will be 4 over 8, and they give you 50%. And then for the percentage change in price, this would be this two number over here, so 250 minus 200 divided by 200. So this would be 50 over 200. So that's about 25%. And the last step for the price elasticity for demand is the percentage change in quantity, which is 50% on top, and then divided by the percentage change in price, which is 25%. So this is roughly about 2. But however, there's a problem here. The problem is that between A and B, which one goes first and which one goes second? Now you see how I put 8 on the bottom over here, but if I do the 12 on the bottom, your answer will be very different. So if you do the 12 on the bottom over here, then you're gonna have very different answers. So there will be 12 minus 8 divided by 12 now. So this will be 4 over 12, and this will actually give you a 33%. So not 50% now. So your answer will be very different. So if you see a question like this, and then if you use this formula, the n value minus star value over star value, without knowing which one comes first, will be very difficult to get the right answer. So to do this type of problem, we need a formula very specifically. And then this formula is called the midpoint method. Now for the midpoint method, let me see if the book gives you a very good example for this one. It doesn't. Okay, so for the midpoint method, this is the formula for it. So it's the n value minus the star value divided by the midpoint. Another way to think about it, you can also think this is the difference between the 2 points minus the average between the 2 points. So difference divided by average. And then for the problem we have over here, so first let's do the percentage change in quantity. So the difference between the two will be 12 minus 8, which is 4. And then the average will be 12 plus 8, which is going to be 20. And then divided by 10, or divided by 2 give you 10. That's the average. So 4 divided by 10, this is 40%. And then for the other one, for the percentage change in price, so the difference is 250 minus 200, that's a 50. Divided by the average, that's going to be 225. So 50 divided by 225. Let me use my phone to calculate this. Come on, iPhone. All right, so 50 divided by 225, this is 0.2222, so 0.22. Therefore, elasticity for demand is going to be 40% divided by 22%. And then, so 40% divided by 22%, this is about 1.8. And that's the answer. Okay? All right, so make sure when you guys doing the elasticity, always use the midpoint method. Now let's do a little practice over here. So we have a problem here. So it says, using the following information to calculate the price elasticity for demand for hotel rooms. So we have the two prices and then we have the two quantity. So first, we need to find out what is the percentage change in quantity and what is the percentage change in price. So the percentage change in quantity, again, we're doing the difference divided by the average. So the difference between the two quantity over here will be 8,600 minus 7,400. So that will be what, 1,200? So 1,200 is, oh, that's a 0. I'm sorry, guys, looks like a 6. So 12, that just looks even worse now. So 1,200 divided by the average between the two, so 86 plus 74, and then divided by 2. What is this answer? I think it's 8,000, but could be wrong. 86 plus 74 divided by 2. All right, 8,000. So divided by 8,000. Why does my 0 look so much like a 6? Okay, sorry guys, bad handwriting. So our elasticity for demand again is going to be 1,200 divided by 8,000, and this will be 15%. And then the percentage change. Terrible handwriting. In price, this will be the difference between the two. So 165 minus 135, there will be a 30. Divided by 165 plus 135 divided by 2, this should be 150. So 30 over 150, and that should be what, 20%. All right, and then lastly, our elasticity for demand is going to be your 15% quantity change divided by 20% your price change. Yeah. All right. So 15 divided by 20, I think this is 0.75. All right. So 0.75. So 0.75, that's our price elasticity for demand. All right. Okay. So Sandy, to find the average. So to find the average, you just use your, so let's say we do the average for the quantity. So it's going to be 8,600 plus the 7,400, and then divided by 2. That's the average. So on top, that's going to be 16,000 divided by 2. So that gives you the 8,000. Okay. So yeah, guys. If you have any questions during the meeting, just post the questions on the chat box, and when I see it, I'll answer as soon as possible. Okay. All right. So everybody got it? Yeah. All right, so if everybody got it, let me continue to the next problem. So 0.75, exactly what we just have. Wait, good job. Now, there are a couple of determinants for price elasticity for demand. The first determinant to determine how elastic the goods are is that if you compare, let's say, breakfast and sunscreen, so breakfast cereal and sunscreen, which one do we have to have? Now, for breakfast cereal, if the price increased by 20%, then what can we do? There is really nothing you can buy. Can you buy anything besides breakfast cereal? Sure, right? I mean, we can do what in the example they listed. You can buy Eggos, you can buy or leftover pizza or pancakes, so you can buy other stuff. But if the price for sunscreen increased by 20%, then what else can we do? Can we buy something else besides sunscreen? I mean, you can try to wear a long sleeve shirt. You can try, I don't know, maybe what else can you do besides sunscreen? I will get an umbrella, but what if it's windy outside? But you know what, guys? Let me show you something. Oh, Yared, so you say you forgot to do your weekly discussion. Yeah, Yared, if you forget to do your weekly discussion, should be okay. Because for all the discussions, we're gonna drop the 2 lowest discussion grade. So if you missed 1 or 2, those will be dropped at the end of the semester. Okay. So if you miss 1 or 2, that's fine, but just don't miss anything like more than 2. That's a problem, because if it's more than 2, then it will be counted against you. All right. Now, for this sunscreen over here, so what else can we do besides sunscreen? Let me show you guys something. So you can wear a long sleeve shirt, so they'll protect your body. But what do we do with your face? So there is something called face bikini. So face bikini, think this as a bikini for your face. Okay, so let me show you. This is called face bikini. So it pretty much covers everything besides your mouth and your eyes, and then this will cover your faces. Okay, so this is another way to protect yourself against the sun. It's very popular in East Asian countries, the country like China, Korea, Japan is very popular because people want to protect their face against any exposure to sun. Now, if you want to buy them over here, we also sell them here too. So if you go to Amazon, let's look for face bikini. Yeah, so bikini for your face. Oh, I spelled it wrong. Face bikini. So yeah, see, we sell face bikinis in America. So this one, it will cost you about $10. So it's not that expensive. So it's another alternative for protection for the face. Okay, but in reality, besides sunscreen, we don't have much choices, right? So because your breakfast cereal, there are many close substitute available. So for breakfast cereal, this one, demand will be more price elastic. So if price change, we buy something else. But for sunscreen, you have less number of substitute available. So when price change, we cannot change. So for sunscreen over here, we're less price elastic. All right. Now next one. So if you make comparison between blue jeans and clothing, so which one is more price elastic? Now, if the good is more narrowly defined, so blue jeans, then this good will be more price elastic. Because the guys really all goes back to how much choices we have. So if the price for blue jeans increase, then guess what? We buy something else, right? We can buy khakis, we can buy skirt. So we buy something else. We don't have to buy just blue jeans. But if the price for clothing increase, then we got a problem. Because if clothing increase by 20%, there is really not that much you can buy. So we're stuck with it, right? So therefore, if that's the case, when blue jean price increase, consumers are more price elastic. We buy something else. But when you have clothing price increase, then consumers are less price elastic. We cannot buy anything else. We have to pay for the higher prices. Okay, so that's example 2. And then example 3, insulins versus Caribbean cruise. So again, this goes back to which one do you have to have? Do you have to have insulin or do you have to have Caribbean cruise? Now, insulin, I don't know if you guys know this, but insulin is for diabetics. So pretty much if you don't have insulin, you will die if you're diabetics. So insulin for diabetic, this is a necessity. So because the good is a necessity, then we have to have it. Therefore, it's less price elastic. But for Caribbean cruise, I mean, nobody will die if you don't go on to Caribbean cruise, right? I mean, unless you're Paris of the Caribbean. But otherwise, we don't need to have Caribbean cruise. That's a luxury good. So because they're luxury good, therefore they are more price elastic. So when the price change, we buy something else. Okay, so that's example 3. And then the last example is the gasoline in the short run versus gasoline in the long run. Now let me give you an example for the short run and long run. So everybody outdrive, right? And then imagine for next week, so only next week, the price for gasoline will increase. Let's say it will double. So it goes how much now? $1.80, $1.90 right now. So let's say for next week, the price for gasoline will become $4 per gallon. Now, would that change your behavior dramatically? Probably not, right? You probably drive to school, you probably drive to work, so that wouldn't change your behavior dramatically. But let's imagine the price increase, so the double the price wouldn't be just for 1 week, but the double the price will be for the next 10 years. Now, would that change your behavior? Of course, right? So it's when you guys paying more for gasoline, then guess what? We're gonna do something else. So drive smaller cars, getting more bicycles, or share cars, or bus to work. So in the long run change, consumers will have more choices. Then we're gonna be more elastic. So change our behavior. But in the short run, so very short time span, we cannot change behavior. So those will be less price elastic. Okay, Rose, let me see your question. So you said that the more elastic, the more QD drops. That's right. So more elastic just means you're more flexible. So if the price increase for this one good and we're more flexible, guess what? We change our behavior. Therefore, your quantity demanded will increase or decrease. And then vice versa, if you're inelastic, so you're less flexible, then when the price increase or decrease, we change our behavior only by a little bit. Okay, so more elastic, the more quantity demanded you will change. Less elastic, the less quantity demanded you will change. Okay, that makes sense? All right, and then let me see. All right, so we're gonna have five different cases of this elasticity for demand. Now, if you see a vertical demand curve, very rarely do you see this, but if you see a vertical demand curve, this is called perfectly inelastic demand. Now, that just means consumers, we don't change behavior whatsoever. So it doesn't matter what the price is, that we consume the same amount. And then for this perfectly inelastic demand curve, your elasticity will equals to 0. Now, let me give you an example for this perfectly inelastic demand. Imagine currently we have a market for air. So the more air you breathe, the more you're going to pay. Now, if that's the case, do you see people breathing more air when air is free or cheap? Or they breathing less when air is more expensive? No, we don't, right? We don't have control over that. So for this case in the market for air, it doesn't matter what the price is. We buy the same amount. So quantity demand never change. So it's always at the same spot. So when this happens, then you're gonna have a perfectly vertical demand curve, and this is called perfectly inelastic demand. All right. Now next, we have our regular inelastic demand. So for inelastic demand, the elasticity is less than 1. That means your price will change by a lot, but quantity only change by a little bit. So in this case over here, consumers, we don't care about price that much. We might just care a little bit, but not that much. So when the price change by a lot, we only change our behavior by a little bit. Okay, so that's called inelastic demand, and that's less than 1. And next it's called unit elastic. And then for unit elastic, your percentage change in price is equal to percentage change in quantity. And then elasticity in this case equal to exactly 1. Okay. And then next one is called elastic demand. So for elastic demand, the price sensitivity is very high. So when price change by a little bit, we change by a lot. So therefore elasticity is more than 1. So that's called elastic demand. Okay. And then last one, you're gonna see a perfectly horizontal demand curve. This one, it means that the price sensitivity is extremely high. So imagine this, look at this. So on this demand curve, if the price increased by just a little bit, so let's call this one P new. So at this new price, how much is my quantity? Well, if you look across the horizon, oh, that's supposed to be a straight line. Across horizon, it never touched with our demand curve. So which means that this P new, or the new price over here, we don't buy any. The quantity demanded is 0. So quantity demanded is all happening on this one price level. So therefore, when the price changes by a little bit, we change our behavior entirely. Okay, so in this case, your elasticity will be infinity. Now the reason why it's infinity, if you do this change over here, so you're gonna use what any number, so let's say 5 and divided by 0. Now normally we call this one undefined, but if you do the limit of x divided by 0, what is equal to? That will give you infinity. Okay, so this one elasticity is equal to infinity. All right. Now here are some of the examples of real world elasticity. So eggs are very low elasticity because again, that's a necessity. We have to have it, and then there's not many other choices besides egg. Because now, if you put this, let's say if we say organic red egg, then that one you're gonna have more choices available. Then the elasticity will be high. But this one is very generally defined, therefore it's very low elasticity. And a healthcare very low elasticity because we have to have it. Rice very low elasticity because we gotta have it. And if you ask me, my elasticity for rice is very low because I'm Chinese. Okay, but look at the last one, Mountain Dew over here. It's very high elasticity. Now, first of all, we don't have to have it. Second of all, there are so many other choices. So Coke, Pepsi, Sprite, Diet Coke, whatsoever. And then so because of those reasons, and this good is very, specifically or narrowly defined, therefore has a very high elasticity. Now, if it just says soft drink, now if it says soft drink, then this will have a lower elasticity because for soft drink, it's a very generally defined. Okay, so for those reasons, that these are the elasticity for the real world. All right, now let's continue. All right, so this part is important. The elasticity for demand for the same good on the same demand curve, it will depends on where you are. A different portion of the demand curve, your elasticity is very different. So usually on the top portion, the elasticity is more, so we call this elastic. On the bottom portion, elasticity is less. So and then somewhere in the middle, you're gonna have a unielastic, which is exactly equal to 1. And the reason why elasticity is very high at the top portion demand curve, because when the good is more expensive, so when the good is, for this one over here is between $20 to $30. So when they're more expensive, consumers tend to look for other choices. So when at a higher price, you're basically forcing consumers to look for alternatives. So therefore, our elasticity is very high. But when the good is cheap, then we don't even bother to look for alternatives. We still buy the same good. Therefore, your elasticity is very low. And then somewhere in the middle, you have this unielastic. Okay. And then next, we're going to talk about total revenue. So revenue for the company equals to price times quantity. And then we can use elasticity for demand to find out at what quantity level is company's revenue maximized. Because between price and quantity, they move different directions. So let me see if the book has a PowerPoint has a very good definition for it. No, it doesn't. Okay, so guys, just remember this. Let's see how to put this. Oh, here we go. So when demand is elastic, when price increase, total revenue will fall. Okay, so when demand is elastic, when price increase, total revenue will fall. And then vice versa, when demand is inelastic, price increase, total revenue will rise. So when demand is elastic, price increase, total revenue will fall. When demand is inelastic, price increase, total revenue will rise. And then when demand is unit elastic, don't change anything because at unit elastic, your total revenue is maximized. Okay, so guys, one more time. Okay, so when demand is elastic, a price increase will cause total revenue to fall. When demand is inelastic, a price increase will cause total revenue to rise. And then when demand is unielastic, that means your total revenue is already maximized. All right, so let me keep going. Yeah, don't worry about the price elasticity for supply. I don't think this is tested on your quiz, but it's very similar to our demand curve. Okay, I'm gonna skip this. Now this you might see on the quiz. It's called an income elasticity for demand. So for income elasticity for demand, it's a very similar formula. It's your percentage change in quantity over your percentage change in income. So for this change over here, If your income elasticity is more than 0, we call this normal good. If income elasticity is less than 0, we call this inferior good. Okay. And remember, if you remember normal good, inferior good from last week, chapter 4, normal good just means when income goes higher, we buy more. And then inferior good means when income goes higher, we buy less. That's inferior good. All right, and then last slide for chapter 5 is the cross price elasticity. We're using the quantity demanded, or the change in quantity demanded for good 1 divided by the price change in good 2. And then when this is positive, this 2 good must be substitute. Okay, go away. When the elasticity is negative, then this 2 good must be complement. So we can use the cross price elasticity to find out if 2 good are either complement to each other or substitute each other. All right, so guys, that's it for chapter 5. Does anybody have any questions so far? Any questions? No question? All right, if no question, then let's go to chapter 6. All right, so chapter 6. We talk about demand, supply, and government policy. So first definitions, what is price ceiling and what is price floor? So price ceiling is the legal maximum price for good and service, and then price floor is the legal minimum price for good and service. And then you can, if you guys know what's a rent control, there will be a price ceiling. Now we don't have rent control in Houston, but if you go to cities like New York, San Francisco, they have rent control properties. Now, what that means the government will set up the maximum price for this property, and then landlords cannot charge anything more than the maximum. So that's called a price ceiling. And then price floor is the opposite. So example for price floor is minimum wage. So that's the lowest price you can pay for something. And in this case, it's labor. That's called price floor. So let's look at how the price ceiling and price floor will affect our market. Now let's first look at the price ceiling. So suppose right now with no government intervention, our equilibrium is at this intersection over here. So we have the price of 800 and a quantity of 300. And then next, suppose government put a ceiling at $1,000. Now, guys, here's the thing. Ceiling is the maximum. So if your current price is 800, and then you put a new maximum at 1,000, this wouldn't change your behavior at all, because you will be still doing the same thing. Let me ask, think like this. So Laura, Sandy, and Rose. So suppose you guys are driving on 59. The speed limit is how much? What's the speed limit on 59? 60, 65. So let's say 65. Okay, so 65 mile per hour. How fast do you guys drive? I don't think you guys are going 65. As many of us, we go above the speed limit. So let's just suppose, let's say Rose, everyday driving, you go what, 70 mile per hour. Now again, you shouldn't do the speeding, but we do it anyway. So if you're driving 70 mile per hour, and then next week, government comes in and says, hey guys, you know what? Really, Laura, you go 60? I don't believe that. You don't go 60. All right, so for this, right. So let's say for next week, government comes in and says, you know what, guys, we're gonna increase the speed limit. So for next week, the speed limit will be 150 mile per hour. Now, does that mean you're gonna increase your speed to 170, just 10 mile above the speed limit? No, right? And guys, please don't. That's a highway to hell. You don't want to go that fast. So the thing is, if your limit is more than what you doing anyway, then it won't change anything, right? It won't change anything. So if the limit is set at 150, and then you doing your business at 70 mile per hour, then the limit doesn't even bother you. So just like over here, that if your equilibrium is at 800, and then the limit is set at 1,000, then this limit has no effect because we're already below the speed limit. Already below the maximum price. So if anytime your price ceiling is set above the equilibrium, so when this happens, we call this not binding because this has no change in the economy. Okay, now vice versa. Suppose the new price ceiling is set at 500. Now this will change something for the economy because your current price 800, the new limit is 500. That's the highest price you can go. So which means we cannot stay at 800 anymore. We have to go down to 500. So this lower price ceiling, this is called a binding constraint because that will cause a change in the economy. Hi, Muhammad. All right, so and then by the way, if you have this binding constraint, it will cause a shortage in the economy. And the reason why it causes a shortage, if you guys remember from chapter 4, so supply demand, when price goes lower, at a lower price, according to law of demand, we want to buy more when price goes lower, but companies want to supply less. So companies supply less, we'll buy more. Then we'll have a shortage for the economy. Okay, so remember with a binding constraint, we're gonna have a shortage for the economy. All right. Okay, so let's continue. Now for price floor, same concept but reversed. Okay, so let's say for this example over here, currently our equilibrium is at this intersection over here. So price of $6, quantity of 500. And let's suppose government tomorrow coming in here says, by the way, guys, the new price floor will be at $6. Now, price floor is the minimum that you can charge on something, right? So if your current price is already at $6 and then the minimum is set at 5, that's okay because our current price of 6 is already above the minimum, so we don't have to change. So for any price floor that's below the equilibrium price, we call this one not binding. Okay, so not binding just means the price floor is below equilibrium. Sandy, you're going 80 miles per hour. All right, just make sure I have a very good excuse when they catch you for speeding. But guys, to be honest with you, I usually goes about maybe 75, 59. But the thing is, I drive a Prius, and nobody ever believed Prius can go speeding on the highway. So nobody ever catch me for speeding. Okay, so if you want to avoid speeding ticket for the rest of your life, get a Prius and you can go as fast as you can, and nobody ever believe you are speeding. All right. Now for this over here, for this price floor, is actually above our equilibrium. And remember, this is the minimum over here. So this case is called a binding constraint because this will cause a change in the economy. Because currently at 6, that's too low. With a new minimum 725, we have to increase to at least 725. So that's called a binding constraint. But with the binding constraint for the price floor, we're going to creating surplus in the economy. Because according to law of demand, law of supply, when price goes higher, demand goes lower, supply goes higher. So we supply more, company demand less, then you have a surplus for the economy. Okay. All right. Let's keep going. Okay, so this is important too. So tax. Now tax, we're gonna talk more about tax in later chapters, but this is just a brief introduction. So tax, you can think tax. Don't think this about what percentage do you pay or how much you pay for tax. Tax is just the difference between how much you pay, so the price paid by demand, subtract the price that received by supply. So tax is the difference between how much buyer pays and how much seller receive. That's your tax. And let's see how tax would change the economy. So suppose right now for the market for pizza, we have equilibrium price of $10 and an equilibrium quantity of 500. And next, we're gonna do a tax on it. And then for the tax, we're gonna do a tax of $1.50 on the buyers, And remember this, if you do the tax on buyer, demand will shift lower. Okay. And then if you do the tax on sellers, supply will shift higher. So one more time, if you do the tax on buyers, demand shift lower. If you do the tax on sellers, demand will shift higher. Now, so for this case over here, we're going to do a tax on the buyers. So your demand would go down by exactly how much the tax is. So from this point, we'll shift down by $1.50. So this D2, that's your new demand curve. And then from the new demand curve, we're going to have our new equilibrium. So this point over here, that was your old equilibrium. And this point, that's your new equilibrium. And on your new equilibrium, this is your new quantity. And then this is the new price. Okay. Now, so suppose over here that at a new equilibrium, the price is $9.50, quantity is $4.50. Now that's how much the transaction is in the economy. So QD and QS, the quantity demanded and quantity supplied. But for price, at this point on your old supply curve, that just shows you how much the price for a seller is. That means how much is selling receiving from this transaction. And then to see how much buyer pays, go up to your first demand curve. At this point on the first demand curve, the price for buyer is at $11. So buyer pays 11, seller receives 9.50, and then this difference, $1.50, that is your tax. Okay, so again, what you're gonna do, get your new equilibrium, and then on the new equilibrium, the price, that's the seller price, how much seller receive, and then go up to your old demand curve at 11, that's how much your buyer pays. So buyer pays 11, seller receive 9.50, and the difference of $1.50, that is our tax. Okay, and then the incidence of tax, that just shows you how much tax does each party pays. So what you're gonna compare the current price to the old price. So before tax, the buyer was paying at $10, seller was receiving $10. So this is our old price over here, and then the new price is over here. So the buyer new price is $11, seller new price is $9.50. So for buyers, before we're paying $10, and now we're paying 11, so which means our price increased by $1, and that is the incidence for buyers. So this is your tax for buyers. And then for sellers, before the tax, they were getting $10 per unit or per pizza, but now with the tax, they're only receiving $9.50. So the incidence of tax on sellers is 50 cents. That's how much tax seller pays. All right, guys. So that's the incidence on tax. Let me see. And then same thing, if you do the tax on the sellers, remember for sellers, when you do a tax, the supply curve will move up by exactly how much tax is. And then when that happened, your new equilibrium will be at this point between your new supply curve and then your old demand curve. So that's your new equilibrium. And then that will be your new price. And this will be your new quantity. Okay. So again, $10 and $4.50. But if you notice, what did I just do? Go back. All right, here we go. So if you notice that when we did the tax on buyers, this was the buyer price, seller price, and the quantity for the marketplace. But when we do the tax on sellers, we still have the same information. So what it means doesn't matter who you tax on, you tax the buyers, you tax the sellers, the end result is all the same. Okay, so let me repeat. It doesn't matter who you tax on, the buyers or the sellers, the end result will be all the same. All right, now let's continue. Okay, so I believe this is the last section of this chapter. So elasticity and tax incidence. Elasticity does have an effect on how much tax you pay. So if you look at these two lines over here, And then if you want to see which one is more elastic, which one is less elastic, the steeper the line is, the more elastic this part is. So if you look at this supply demand curve, it looks like the demand curve is more. No, I'm sorry. The steeper. Let me retract. Okay, so the steeper the line is, the less elastic you are. So you don't have any choices. So between supply and demand over here, the demand is more steep than the supply. So demand is less elastic. Now, if you are less elastic, you're gonna pay a bigger portion of the tax. So for this market over here, see how much the buyer is paying. So the green section, that's how much tax buyer paying, and then the red section is how much tax the seller is paying. So seller pay a lower tax. Sellers, their supply curve is more flat. That means they're more elastic. So they have more choices. Therefore, they're going to pay a lower amount of tax compared to buyers. And then over here, it's reversed. Over here, your demand curve is flatter. Your supply curve is more steep. So supply, in this case, they don't have any choices. They have to sell the good. More on demand curve, we don't have to buy the good. Therefore, the seller pays a higher tax, and then the buyer pays a lower tax. All right. Sync. Okay, so that's it for chapter 6. Does anybody have any questions right now regarding to the chapter 5 and chapter 6? Let me wait for a second. There might be a time delay. So any questions, guys? All right. Okay, so if no questions, before I send you guys home or let you go, let me teach you one more thing. This is from chapter 4 that I was going to show you guys last week, but we couldn't do the meeting. I was in another meeting all day long. So let me show you something that they need to know for chapter 4. That when we do the change or increase of demand or increase of supply, you're probably thinking, where do I shift the curve? Do I shift up or do I shift lower? Now, for demand supply curve, when you do the increase or decrease, don't think about this as either shifting higher or shift lower. You want to think this as either you're shifting to the left or shifting to the right. So if it's increasing, you're shifting to the right. If it's decreasing, you're shifting to the left. So increasing to the right, decreasing to the left. So it's not about up and down. It's all about left and right. And then, by the way, when I was in high school, my senior year, I had a speech class, and the teacher was very cool. So we're talking about all kind of stuff in class, but there are certain subjects we shouldn't talk about in class, especially in high school environment. And then one of the subject was sex. So she never called it sex. She called it up and down. Okay, so remember, no up and down, only left and right. So if it's increasing, we're shifting to the right. If it's decreasing, we're shifting to the left. And then you guys can do a little exercise at home or in your other classes. So do this. Take your hand out, okay? So first, let's stick out your right thumb and then left pinky. So this will be to the right, okay? And then next, take it back. Take out your left thumb and right pinky. So this will be to the left, okay? So increase, shifting to the right. And for the back, decrease, shifting to the left. All right, so increase, decrease, increase, decrease, increase, decrease, increase, decrease, increase, decrease. All right, so guys, give it a try at home or in your other classes. So remember, if it's increasing, we're shifting to the right, decreasing, shift to the left. Increase, decrease, increase, decrease. All right, guys, so have any question, let me know. Send me an email and I'll respond. I'll respond as soon as possible. All right, guys. So if no questions, let's call it a wrap today. And then I will see you guys same time next week. Okay, so this week, remember we're doing our chapter 5 and chapter 6 stuff. And then next week is going to be our exam. Now, to prepare for the exam, do this for me. So guys, you can go back to your quizzes or go back to your homework. Look at which question you have a problem with and then which question you want me to go over in the meeting. Okay, and then post them on the chat box. I'll put the link on Canvas today. So for next week's meeting, you can find the link on there in Canvas, and you can go there before the meeting and then post the questions in there, and I'll answer them next week live. All right, guys. Yeah, that's right. Next week, someone. So does anybody have any questions at this point? Let me wait. There's a time lag between my webcam and also what is on YouTube. Yeah, so chapter 3 quiz is blocked. You cannot take it anymore, but you can still go back in there to look at your previous attempts. Okay, so go back in there, check your previous attempts, and then see if any question you want to go over. And then Rose, for the questions, now the same for the exam is very similar to the quiz. So they're all multiple choice questions, and actually many of the quizzes questions they will be on the test again. So one of the best way to study for the test is to go over to look at all the previous quiz. And then guys, even though those quizzes are closed for now, but if you go back to it, you can still look at your previous attempts. Okay. All right. It won't let you. Laura, let me check it for you when we finish. Okay, so it should be able to let you access your previous attempts. But let me check, and then I will let you guys know. All right. Now, does anybody have any other questions? No questions. Okay, so if no other questions, guys, I will see you guys here next week, and have a nice week. So don't forget to do your chapter 5 and chapter 6 quiz and assignment, and have any problem, let me know. All right, guys, see you later. Bye bye.